up, we have Azmat Yusuf, who's CEO and founder at Citymapper.
Thank you very much. Well, compared to Pip, I'm going to have a much more boring presentation because it's basically me. But I started with saying I haven't been back to the British Library for a while, but I remember coming here in the really early days. It's got to be 6, 7, 8 years ago, when it was hard to find Wi-Fi in the city, and I would come here and work. And I haven't been back for a really long time, but it's really nice to be back here. Let me start just by asking how many of you have used our app, are familiar with our application? Oh, that's great, fantastic. So I don't have to explain too much about what the app is, but explain why I developed it and went for the idea. Back when I was roaming these halls and I had this inkling that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, I think I had a sense that I wanted to do something in mobile, but I wasn't sure exactly what it was going to be. So what I did was try and look for just personal problems that I thought hadn't been solved, that I had myself. And one of the problems I had, having been new to London, was I had trouble getting around. And I would always find myself in strange parts of the city, completely lost and unable to figure out what to do. And I would see all these people taking buses, and I would think, well, this is really like it's just me here who doesn't know what I'm doing. Everybody else clearly knows what they're doing. So it started out really as a personal project, a desire to just build things, which resonated with a bigger community than I thought. Initially, it was a bus app that we just made public just to test out the waters, and there was a huge reaction to it. And I was surprised to learn how many people saw value in building out that application. So Citymapper came on the back of building out a test bus app just to figure out if there was something here that resonated. And it was important to me personally to find something to work on which I felt was going to be meaningful. So even though I would love to build a game or anything, I wanted to work on something that I thought would solve a problem that people would use all the time. And so I was narrowing these sort of circles. What's interesting to me? What am I going to be okay at, good at? What is actually going to solve a meaningful problem? And also, what trends you can build a business around. So back then, this is again 6 years ago when we started, mobile had already started, but it became evident that there was an opportunity to build applications. And so you want to ride trends that you can find to work on the back of. But there were others. There was open data. Here in the UK, we've been at the forefront of open data compared to other cities and countries around the world. And I felt we had an advantage here of thinking about what to do with this data and how to fashion it for mobile. Additionally, public transportation. Here, we love our public transportation. And in parts of the US, nobody would think of building a public transport app. And so I felt it was necessary for those of us living in such a city to reimagine how transportation and urban mobility should work for people that don't own cars. And I didn't feel that anybody in San Francisco was going to work on that properly. So it was important to discover certain trends that I felt would give us a wave of interest and support over the years, and that's what we developed. So the app now is in about 40 cities, and so even betting on open data was a good bet because open data initially, which was limited to a few cities, proliferated, and we managed to expand our app in a lot of places. And what we've been doing in recent years is actually trying to build a business. Now, I was lucky in the early days to build a product and go to investors who would ask, what's the business? And say, I don't have one. And what we're going to do is build a great application, and people are going to use it all the time. And I told them it's going to be a home screen app, and people are going to use it very often, and we're going to develop the business later. And because we had great metrics, that was okay, and we received backing. And it was also because there were many different businesses that we felt we can develop on the back of it. The first business we decided to develop, if any of you are familiar with how many of you heard of the green bus we ran in London? A few of you. So we were looking at the data our app produces, and instead of trying to use it for any nefarious purposes or for advertising. We thought, why don't we use this to study how mobility is working in a city and find gaps in the transport network? And we found a gap in the transport network, and we ran a bus, actually at night in East London. As the night tube expanded, we felt there was an opportunity there, and it did really well. So there's two stories here. One, it was a very creative way to try and build a business out of what we'd built with our data, which again for us was on mission. We didn't want to do advertising. We wanted to build something useful. But the other thing we learned is that even though we were bold and excited, the regulation was something that was very, very hard. And once we actually got into the details, we felt that it was too hard to scale that business. Even if you could run it correctly in some places, if we wanted to scale the business, it was going to be very hard for us to do that. And so we tackled the regulations for a while and then realized it wasn't something we were going to do much of it. So, I look back at that, and I'm actually really glad we were bold, and I'm glad we tried something. It was a great learning experience for us. And we eventually evolved the bus business into what we have right now, which is a shared cab business. So if you use our application, you'll see that we have a rideshare service called Citymapper Ride. And we found that is much easier to work with on the regulatory side and scales much better for us. The concept there is again something that we believe on in terms of a mission, which is that cities are very congested. And if you look at all the cars moving around, there are a lot of empty seats. You may think of cars, but if you look at the empty seats, you think, well, why don't we fill them? Because now we have technology where we can actually do that. We can match people to the same vehicles. So we can solve congestion and bring down the price point so it becomes more affordable. So we're reimagining ride sharing essentially for a public transport audience. And if you use our rideshare service, you'll get a great price point, and if you get lucky, somebody will share it with you, and you can feel better about your contribution to the city. So our product has essentially allowed us to build a user base, build a data set around it, and now try and find businesses that we can build on the back of it. I'm really sorry to say this, but there's one of our businesses we're going to launch. We're actually announcing and launching it next week, so the timing is really off this. But please look out for it. We're going to announce something very soon, which I think, for those of you who live in London and use public transport, are going to be really excited about. And that's also just to show you how long we've been, running the product. Before building out the business. If that is any help to anyone going along that same struggle, we have a case study of having done so. Anyway, I'm a fan of Q&A, so I'll just stop there, and I'm glad to answer any questions anyone may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Azmat. Fantastic telling of the story. We all love Citymapper. I guess it's fantastic to think that 6 years ago you were just like us. I guess there's hope for a couple of us. I run panels a lot, and one question I always ask people is, what are the 3 apps you cannot live without? And I don't think I've done a panel in the last year that people haven't listed Citymapper as one of them. So I want to ask you the question. You're not allowed to say Citymapper. What are the 3 apps that you can't live without?
Oh, gosh. You think I would have a set answer to that. What am I using a lot right now? I think I end up using Slack a lot because that's how I communicate with my team. Let me try and think of something a bit more new that's come around. I've been using, just for something a bit out of the ordinary, I've been using Nuzzle a lot, which is an aggregator of news stories from Twitter and other social media, right, because we just get so much noise thrown at us. It helps filter what's really current and what's worth reading. And what else have I used recently? Thinking of a third one. Forgive me. I can't think of a third one right now.
Maybe one you've invested in? Have you invested in any recently?
I'm not investing in applications. No. All my focus is on my own application.
So Citymapper would still be the third one.
Exactly.
Do you live on Citymapper as well?
All day long.
Yeah. And you said you kind of identified a problem that you were having, and that was where you built your business and your idea from.
Yeah.
That was 6 years ago. What's the problem? You know, if you weren't running Citymapper now, what would the problem be that you think you'd be building to?
A new problem or the same?
A new problem, yeah. I mean, you can do the same one and tell us what the new feature is if you want.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. I knew this was going to be. It's strange, but I would say it this way. Actually, just in terms of thinking about, advice. A lot of what we do is we take the same problems and we solve them again in a better way. There's a few things that may be completely new inventions, but really, if you think of navigation, it's been happening for a long, long time in different capacities. It was physical maps, and now they've come online. And I don't think the space is done. I think as you have new types of devices, you're going to have this space emerge even further. And even if you look at the data side of things, it's incredible how much is not mapped. Like the world is mapped, but we've been spending a lot of time mapping stations and platforms and all these details that make everything more accurate. So I think there's going to be a lot more that happens just in terms of how we navigate the space. I still think we all have trouble even finding things like I walked into the main British Library and need to figure out where you're going exactly. And so all these challenges are still to be solved. So I suspect if I was starting again right now, I would think about the new infrastructure, the new platforms, and try and reimagine a space. And find something that you like, that you love. You think, when I did this, I said, I actually love cities. And I thought I could spend a decade working on something to do with cities. And if you do that, and there's something you can just keep at it even through bad days, you're still enjoying yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if I could say I love buses though, or love the tube.
I've learned to love the bus in ways that I didn't realize before that was possible. But it's an acquired taste.
So yeah, for any of you that love buses, there you go. There's hope in it. So round of applause, please, there for Azmat.